In early 1915, the trenches on the Western Front were a scene of complete stop. The fighting in the muddy ditches was going nowhere, with soldiers stuck in their positions. It was a hard and terrible time for everyone involved. People were looking for a way to break the deadlock and find a victory. The Allied forces, especially the British, were eager to find a place where they could make a big impact and quickly.
Winston Churchill was thinking differently. He believed that the Ottoman Empire was a weaker enemy that could be attacked for easier results. He had big ideas about changing the course of the war by fighting them. He thought that if Britain could beat the Ottomans, it would change everything. His goal was to take a key position that could help Britain win, and he was ready to make bold moves to try his plan.
One of the main places the British were focusing on was the Turkish Straits. These were very important because they controlled access between the Mediterranean and the Black Seas. By controlling the straits, Britain could also help their Russian allies who were struggling and needed support to keep fighting. If the British could gain this area, it would cause a major shift in the war, helping their friends and making life harder for their enemies.
The effects of such a victory were not just military. Politically, Britain hoped that by winning here, it would gain new friends. Countries like Bulgaria, Romania, and Greece were watching carefully, and they might join the British side if they saw them win. This would add more strength to the British efforts. There was a lot at stake, and with these potential allies, they could change the future of the war entirely.
As the British prepared for their attack on the Turkish Straits, they faced many challenges. The terrain of the Gallipoli Peninsula was a major problem. It was very rugged, with high hills and steep ravines that made any attack difficult. The British knew that taking this area by land would be very tough. Plus, nearly all their troops were on the Western Front, leaving few soldiers for such a mission.
Given the situation, Churchill came up with a bold plan, a naval-only attack. He wanted British and French warships to pass through the straits and force Constantinople to surrender. This plan was risky, and not everyone liked it. The rugged terrain and the strength of the Ottoman defenses made others think that warships might not succeed alone. But Churchill believed in his strategy.
Opposition to the plan came from key figures like War Minister Lord Kitchener and First Sea Lord Jackie Fisher. They worried that the naval attack might fail if the warships became trapped in the narrow depths of the straits. They wanted more thought put into the operation's risks, but Churchill did not give up. He continued to push for his plan, convincing some of his colleagues of its potential impact.
Eventually, the War Council decided to give Churchill's idea a try. They approved the naval attack, hoping it would work. There was even hope that Russia would help from the Black Sea, giving additional support. Though this help from Russia did not happen, the decision gave Britain a chance to open a new front. If you're interested in more details or in receiving transcripts of all these discussions, consider joining our paid membership. It's a great way to support us.
As the British prepared for their naval attack, the Ottomans were not idle. Brigadier Tsevat Pasha led the defenses, ensuring that their positions were as strong as possible. Knowing the potential of an attack, the Ottomans worked hard to reinforce their coastal forts and install new defenses. They made sure that their forces were ready, expecting that the Allies would push forward with their plans. It was a tense time, with everyone aware of what failure could mean.
The Germans played a big role in helping the Ottomans get ready. They provided modern guns and trained the Ottoman soldiers in their use. This meant the Ottomans were not only dependent on outdated equipment, but had new artillery that could challenge the Allies. Mobile artillery units were also organized, making sure that any landing troops would face a fierce response. With these preparations, the Ottomans felt more confident in their ability to hold the line against the British.
In addition to their guns, the Ottomans set up mine defenses to surprise the Allied warships. Mines were laid in strategic positions to stop any ships trying to get through. This was a hidden threat that could cause havoc if the Allies were not careful. The preparations were thorough, given that a naval-only assault meant the ships were taking on a major risk. As the time approached, tension was in the air. Knowing the defense planned was crucial.
When the Allied warships finally arrived at the Dardanelles, they faced immediate challenges. Despite their numbers, the initial attacks did not go as planned. The guns on the ships were not well suited for the hilly and rugged terrain of the Ottoman defenses. As they tried to clear their path, the concealed mines and strong Ottoman defense pushed back, causing frustrating setbacks for the Allies. It became clear that underestimating the Ottomans would lead to problems.
On March 18, the Allied forces organized their biggest naval assault yet against the Ottoman defenses at the Dardanelles. This operation included a grand strategy that involved the cooperation of multiple warships from Britain and France. Their goal was clear: to break through the heavily fortified Ottoman positions guarding the strait. The plan was risky and relied on the element of surprise and sheer force to overwhelm the soldiers stationed there.
However, the Ottomans were not caught off guard. They had prepared well under the leadership of Brigadier Cevat Pasha. Ottoman soldiers were ready for the attack, and their positions were fortified with strong defenses. One heroic tale from that day was of Corporal Sayet, who single-handedly loaded massive shells into his gun after a malfunction, keeping the offensive against the Allied ships alive. His courage became a symbol of resistance for his country.
A significant factor in the Ottoman defense was the use of mines, especially those laid by the mine layer Nusret. This strategic move posed a serious threat to the Allied fleet. Many of the Allied ships ran into these mines, causing severe damage and sinking some ships entirely. The losses were heavy, and this unforeseen obstacle proved that the Ottomans had planned their defenses thoroughly, negating the advantages of the larger and more powerful Allied fleet.
In the aftermath of this failed naval attack, there was much debate among Allied commanders regarding whether to attempt another assault. Some believed that the fleet could push through with better coordination, but others pointed to the steady Ottoman defenses and the mines, which were too risky. Ultimately, the decision was made to withdraw and reconsider their tactics. This decision marked a turning point in the campaign, showing the resilience and preparedness of the Ottoman forces in repelling a direct naval attack.
After the setbacks of the naval assault, the British commanders turned their focus to land operations. They realized that defeating the strong Ottoman defenses would need more direct action. At this point, General Ian Hamilton arrived with a huge task ahead. He took charge of the Mediterranean Expeditionary Force and faced the challenge of organizing landings on the Gallipoli Peninsula. This was going to be their next big effort to try and take the Dardanelles.
The Mediterranean Expeditionary Force was a diverse group made up of different units. It included soldiers from Britain and India, and also featured the Australia and New Zealand Army Corps, known as the ANZACs. They were joined by French troops as well, adding more strength to their numbers. Each of these groups was supposed to play a key part in the land operations. Together, they formed a significant force ready to launch attacks on different points of the peninsula.
The strategic plan was to focus major landings at two key locations, Cape Helis and ANZAC Cove. At Cape Helis, British troops were set to capture a high ridge known as Achi Baba, which would open a path to the fortresses. Meanwhile, the Anzacs were to land further north, aiming to disrupt Ottoman supply routes. The aim was to create pressure from multiple directions, causing the Ottoman forces to stretch thin while trying to defend their ground.
However, not everyone had high hopes for success. Some critics thought the plans were too ambitious and expected that the landings might face serious challenges. Several leaders and military thinkers worried that the rough terrain and experienced Ottoman soldiers might be too much to handle. They also pointed to the potential logistical problems of managing such massive operations across a complex battlefield. Despite the criticisms, preparations continued with the hope of achieving what the naval efforts had not.
On April 25, the first wave of Allied landings began at ANZAC Cove. However, the Anzacs faced immediate problems. Their small boats, steered under the cover of darkness, lost their way in the sea. Instead of arriving at the planned landing grounds, they ended up at a different position known as Ari Burnu. This unexpected situation put the troops in a challenging spot right from the start. They had hoped for a smooth landing without much resistance.
But when they reached the shore, they were met with strong, unexpected resistance from Ottoman forces who were equally surprised by the landing. The Anzacs found themselves under intense fire, which was not expected. It turned out that even the few Ottoman soldiers on guard quickly launched a responsive defense. This immediate conflict set the tone for the difficult day ahead. The Anzacs had to regroup quickly under pressure they had not anticipated.
Moreover, the terrain around ANZAC Cove proved very tough. The steep gullies made it difficult for the troops and their commanders to communicate and organize effectively. This challenging environment added another layer of difficulty to an already complex operation. The lack of clear paths in the rough landscape created confusion among the soldiers, making it hard for them to move and attack as planned. The natural conditions, combined with the enemy's strong position, made their task more challenging.
Despite these challenges, Ottoman reinforcements led by Mustafa Kemal quickly moved to strengthen their defense. His decisive actions and leadership proved pivotal. Kemal effectively mobilized his forces to secure key positions on the high ground, making it even harder for the ANZACs to gain any significant advantage. His clear command decisions ensured that the ANZACs could not capitalize on their initial numerical advantage. The Ottomans defended their position fiercely, setting the stage for prolonged and difficult battles to come.
After the failed naval assault, the Royal Naval Division engaged in a strategic diversion. Positioned in the Gulf of Saros, they simulated a potential landing but did not disembark. This action aimed to confuse the Ottoman defense and divide their attention. Meanwhile, on the Asian side, a French force landed at Cape Helis. This was no small skirmish, as the French confronted fierce resistance in their mission to capture Ottoman positions.
The fight at Cape Helis was intense and unfolded overnight. The French forces, including Senegalese troops, faced determined Ottoman fighters. Sadly, Lieutenant Bonavista fell during the assault, but his men bravely continued, managing to capture the fort. Captain Bryson, injured in the battle, refused treatment and led his company with great courage. Despite multiple Ottoman counterattacks, the French held their position with the help of naval gunfire support, eventually withdrawing as planned the next day.
At Cape Helis, the British were the main force in what was deemed the central attack. The plan involved landing at 5 different beaches, aiming to secure strategic points like Achi Baba. Although the British did land on some less defended beaches without too much trouble, they quickly faced confusion and issues with command. Some troops dug in too early, complicating further advances. This misstep required them to pull back by the following morning.
The challenges were evident, yet the British resolved to press on. Fierce battles took place at V Beach and W Beach, where the Ottomans put up a staunch defense. Notably, 6 soldiers from the Lancashire Fusiliers received the Victoria Cross for their heroic actions that day at W Beach, known also as Lancashire Landing. Among the stories of bravery, Abdul Rahman, an Ottoman soldier, implored for reinforcements against the relentless British, highlighting the extreme conditions on both sides.
Thank you for joining us for this journey through the Dardanelles campaign. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like and subscribe to our podcast. We'll continue exploring more fascinating topics from history, so stay tuned for our upcoming episodes. Your engagement helps us bring more stories to life, and we'd love to hear your thoughts and what you'd like to learn more about.